Now what I wanted to discuss is, like, we have these positions that we're talking about, that we have access to. Prone, sideline, both sides, and then supine. So really 4 positions is what we're going to be training in. Now you can adapt naturally, as you saw. One of the obvious ones is all sideline, but that does not have to be just for prenatal. You would be amazed at the reasons why you use sideline. One good example is my dad had a really bad car accident and had to have two rounds of spinal fusion. Okay? Laying prone and supine was not an option. Sideline was the only option. And anybody who has any low back issues, anybody got a low back thing? All right. Now the PTA, I don't have to tell about going into hyperextension of lumbar spine, but it's not good for it. When you lay flat on the table, it increases lordosis. It increases the arc of your low back, right? And it's not usually the most comfortable position. We can find adaptations to figure this out, like there's treatment tables and bolstering options to figure this out, but one of the easiest ones is to put somebody on their side so that they can adjust and not be, you know, at end range one way. I don't see anybody crunch too much that way, but it's just a much safer and easier option to do. So anyway, what tends to happen for people, though, is they get lost working too much in prone because the belief is you have more access to the bigger muscle groups here, right? Now, I get it from a comfort side of things, too, right? A person's laying face down, you know, all our organs and everything else is contained, so it feels safer, blah, blah, blah. But there's a, body mechanics-wise, you are limited based on where you're standing. And getting access towards the center of the table is where you're going to be reaching the most. So trying to apply forces right at the middle of the table or even across the table, that's where you're at most danger of hurting your back. And that's going to be the biggest thing with body mechanics, is to keep you from going from a nice neutral spine to hunching over and crunching. Too low of a table, you're going to end up here. And you may get away with it for a while, but eventually that catches up. I promise, I promise. So the importance of a big important part of body mechanics is to know when to reposition the person so that you can actually get access to an area better, rather than trying to just move your body and adapt to find a way to get there. If you find yourself reaching too much, maybe you're just standing in the wrong place, or maybe they're not in the right position. And you could save working on that part of the body for another position. And so if I were to draw a line, let me do a quick thing here. We have a leg. We have, starting at the hip, we have the upper leg to the knee, and then we have the lower portion of the leg going down to the ankle, and we got our foot. It's free. Now if I'm standing over here, the hardest part to work on is going to be this medial half. I'm going to always, in prone and supine, have better access to the lateral sides of their body, because So, although we have them positioned in prone, so this is prone position, the prone leg, very abstract. I'm going to have an easier time if I'm standing over here to work on all this. And then if I reposition the body in such a way where in side lying, the leg now is set where I can stand and sit. This is going to be the medial side. So now we're looking at it's only getting better. Let me change this. Not prone, right? This is just posterior. And this would be medial. That would be an important thing when you're starting to look at anatomical pictures, right? You're just looking at the skeleton or something like that, and you see this, like, is that this or that? You have to read. You go, oh, it's those muscles. Versus the lateral side of the leg would show you IT band, right? Now here, if I do another line, come on, blue, beautiful. If I'm standing over here, I'm going to have best access to that. Which, guess what that is? That's this. So I'm working on someone's leg. I don't have to try to work on all parts of the leg in each position. I can work on the regions that I can just get to most efficiently. Now there are times when you have to make adaptations and move, and I can get, believe me, I have ways of working on pretty much all the posterior leg in prone, but it's not the most efficient if I'm able to use all four positions. I can save a chunk of my energy and make sure I'm covering each part, but just doing it with best body mechanics. This, ideally, is a way to help reinforce for you not to spend too long in prone. Just because if you have a better understanding of sideline, plenty of people do just fine working in prone and supine, but the massage therapists that struggle out there are those that cannot adapt to that sideline position. Logan, this is one of Mom's favorite stories, worked at a spa where he was the only massage therapist that knew how to do sideline position. Thus, he was the only massage therapist that could do prenatal. So, there you go. It's a 19-year-old guy, you know, is the only prenatal massage therapist, right? That, I think, is silly. Now, a quick thing on prenatal, that's usually all you need to worry about. If anybody's worried about reflexology things, I'm here to crush that concept, and I wish the internet would stop. Now, but sideline position, that's all it takes. And having that available to you just allows you to adapt to a variety of situations. That's a classic one, but then I mentioned all the other stuff, like with my dad. There's plenty of reasons why. There's also reasons why maybe sideline doesn't work. Because I've had clients with really bad shoulder issues, and even if I did the pillow thing, they just were already mentally resistant to the idea. They're like, no, I can't lay on my side. They've already made that decision in their deep core. They're not gonna do it. So then I have to know how to do a prone supine routine too. And we will do focus on prone supine routines and just sideline routine. But I would ideally like for your majority of sessions to be using all four positions, because those are gonna have you using your body the most efficiently. I think I said that right. All right, with my friend here, I never really thought it would get used so much, so huzzah to that. It's just kind of a horror show. I like that the metal stays with it. The face, though. Now, in terms of assessment, like all things, let's say a person says, this is the shoulder that bothers me. I can just assess the non-affected sides to start. The nice thing about massage, since we work the whole body, we don't have to just go after this. We have to pay attention just as much to other areas of the body and keep them functioning well. And we get to do a nice compare and contrast. So if you ever want my quick statement for what do you do in terms of figuring out what to do for an area, is work on the opposite side and compare it. Massage both, see what's different. That'll get you in the right direction. So this one doesn't move like that. This one does. Now that's too much. That's too little. There's a middle ground here, right? All right, let me, we're on track. And I didn't need this one yet. I got too excited about sideline. I need this guy. Let me actually get my ducks in some kind of a row. You'll never see this again, by the way. We can talk some about tables and stuff later, but this is just a ratchet. So, gotta unlock it. There you go. I've never seen one like it. I probably never will again. Get used to this. I was watching the search thing. Typically, the face cradle slightly down, so their neck is slightly flexed, is most comfortable. There may be adaptations. Maybe there's a chest size and you need to create pillows and adjust here to make, but you have to just adapt, and now we'll just take a small pillow, or there's using a rolled up towel to roll around here, all kinds of options like that. When we get more to draping, we'll deal with that more. For low back, for anybody here, in the videos, I know you've already practiced some of this, but we need to try to get conditioned for this. Did we try this one out last week? So this one's worth trying for anybody with low back issues. It's an interesting thing to see. It hurt me a little bit, but the last chiropractic convention I did, this is what they took from it as the best thing. So, because if a person is with low back dysfunction, most often they will be uncomfortable going more into extension / hyperextension. So that's why you tend to see people like that. And sometimes it's like that, but it's more like that. I can do all the walks. And the pillow under the abdomen, the goal being that their hips and lumbar spine are slightly flexed. Cervical spine, lumbar spine, the most movable, most issue-laden regions of the spine tend to be happier when they're not at like an end range kind of arena. So not end range here, just the body usually wants to be in a recliner, a lazy boy. That puts everything in a nice kind of loose packed position. And that's slightly flexed, not here, there. Same thing. That would be bad. Bad. Positioning of the bolster. Does that look comfortable? No. No. But you'll do it, and it's okay. Here, we want to support the top of the foot. So I tend to feel where their heels are, or their calcaneus is. That's the big bone that you actually land on when you heel strike. That's in line with the bolster. Their heel / calcaneus should be almost right there in line. That way the top of the foot is resting here, and when I squish their foot, it's squished right into the squish. Okay, good, it's on that side now. So this is our initial setup. fantastic. You can certainly change up your routines in time, but this tends to be the most common starting position, and since it's the biggest canvas to start working on, the back makes initially sense to work on. I'm just precursing that it's totally okay to eventually change your routine as you wish to. Many of my clients over the course of time that needed more intervention stuff ended up starting in supine. And you can make lots of arguments either way. Is it, clean up everything and then do the targeted stuff, or do the targeted stuff and then clean up the rest? Usually the science would say, do the general, everything else, and then go to the problematic, symptomatic areas, and hoping that doing everything around it cleans up some of it before you get to it. But time management reasons and other stuff, sometimes it was just more efficient. So I had plenty of people that I did start supine and ended in prone. And I framed it more as, do you want to relax and then get the therapy stuff? Or do you want to get the therapy stuff out of the way and then relax? And frankly, when I usually framed it like that, they usually went the other way, because it was a better way to end it, right? You get to end with the nice stuff rather than end with what, and never should be brutal, but I'm not saying it's always relaxing, right? This begins, now this will all tie into assessment and a little bit of a sneaky intervention. If you reposition the body a lot, you're doing joint movement. So by moving them around, you're already affecting the joint. You can argue that it's doing therapy by doing that. Now, assessment-wise though, I also can confirm, can a person lay like that? If they're laying and they're groaning, then I should probably make some adaptations and figure that out, right? But if they can lay there comfortably, hey, not too bad in the sagittal plane. We'll get there. Now, can they lay like that? Can their shoulder do that? Can their shoulder do that? It's a lovely thing to discern. This side, no. Cannot go this way. Cannot AB duct. That's called. This is flex. Anatomical position. Everything that puts you in a chair or back into being a baby, that's all your flexions. All your flexions. All your flexions. Standing up, out of a squat or out of the chair, that's all your extensions. Abduction into starfish, and then out of starfish, adduction. Well, you heard it once, you'll hear it again. Now, lots of times people can be pretty comfortable laying like that. Stool. Note the broken stool. It has a wheel. Does not have a wheel.
Oh.
But I use it here because it doesn't really bother me. One thing to keep your eyes open for, though, it's surprising how expensive these things can be. Give me 1 sec. And I probably am turning into my mother when I start having to keep a Kleenex around. God help me. Well, now, Sandy, my mother, does not like caster wheels. I do. So this is the ability with the hydraulic thing here for you to be able to adjust. This one's bad, but a good one, being able to change height and all that. It's can function initially as a sitting place if you're in a smaller room for the clients, and then they can get ready, leave their stuff. Ideally, there's shading. Leave their stuff on the chair. There's sometimes some small treatment rooms. Ideally, you have a bigger one, but having something like this that can be multi-purpose for even this. So depending on table height and client arm ratio, yeah, this one's not listening to me. Now, sanitation-wise, there we go. Should I roll this under them and then just park their hand where my butt was?
No.
No, I need to at least put a cloth barrier. Ideally, I spray that, clean it, at least get it fully draped, okay? Plenty of people can lay like this if the athletes would not get off their phones, you know? I can be guilty of that too. So they'd actually be set up with the phone right there. And at least it's better than like this,
Yeah.
right? So I learned to set people up like that. And then it was a discovery. I didn't initially do this in my clinical setting too much. But then I started seeing the value of having their arm out of the way, at least temporarily. But now, a little bit of a thing here. We have to be aware of where we are in making contact with their body, right? So we have to make sure that you're mostly, entirely making contact with their body, with the parts of your body you're using to massage, right? So hitting their hand with your leg or all that kind of stuff is something you want to try to just be aware of and avoid. Things happen, address them immediately and be like, whoopsie, sorry, all that. Don't be weird. Now, getting their limbs and stuff out of the way so you can get to stuff better, right? Now, if their arm is here, and sometimes it just is and that's okay. If I'm gonna be real close to the table and leaning forward to work on their low back, you know, sometimes my belly is right on their arm. You know, the first time, if you've worked with somebody for a long time, like they kind of understand, and you can have a cloth barrier, you can even put other stuff in the way, but if I can get their arm out of the way, I really stress this just so you basically learn that amazing skill. Position the arm in 3 different positions in prone position. It can be an assessment tool, but also can make your life a lot easier because now I can work on the low back and not worry about anything being in my way. Now, if they're laying crooked like this, I have to reach really far to get to that side of their low back. So don't walk in there and go, well, I guess that's how it's going to be. Go, hey, you're going to have to send you scoot over a little bit, you know. Sometimes clients need to learn how to receive a massage. So I understand, you know, when you're starting out, but first-time clients and people that haven't had massage before, that's probably the most difficult dynamic that you'll have. But after they've learned the routine, then you're good to go. Small sidebar, but one option moving forward to consider is having the books available or other guides that just show clients the pictures of all the positions so they can have a better appreciation of what to expect. Like, this is what it looks like. Any questions? You know? You run through all your checks and like it's okay to work in all the areas and all that stuff, but if they can kind of see what it looks like before they even get on there, you clear up a lot of the mess. So here, reposition the arm. That allows me to get better access, and the thing is going to be to avoid reaching. Sometimes if the arm's here, in order to avoid that, then I'm going to have to stand a little bit further away. And now I'm going to be stuck hinging more at my hip and flexing more at my low back. Okay? Biomechanics wise, that's just what you want to start trying to be aware of. Am I flexing so far that I'm beginning to feel unstable and uncomfortable? Okay? And it's just, you have to do a lot of just internal body reading, engaging, and as you're working through in this early stage, where do you just feel more uncomfortable? Where do you feel most comfortable? Using the forearm, this is going to naturally be the best area to use that. So, if I'm working here, figuring out how to stand. I know Sarah talked about making sure your hips, the pelvis is open to the table, so you're on angles. Predominantly, you're going to be on angles. I understand that, you know, for the brain, working more in parallel and perpendicular lines, tends to be where you just default, right? You tend to default to here and to here. But really you gotta think more on these diagonal X patterns. And that's gonna be being able to go here. It gets harder for you starting out working closer to the spine because you're gonna be scared. But being able to palpate and find the spine and find the ribs, especially the lower ribs, identify what those are. Place your hand so that you're making contact. They are paying for touch. This is massage, right? So there's the working arm and the non-working arm. The non-working arm can help you in a variety of ways. It could be holding the sheet, it could be holding a limb, but it also could be making contact with like these bony landmarks so you know where they are, so you don't inadvertently smash into them. The nice thing about massage too is that we work slow. So if anybody here has started doing massage, if you're fast, anybody feel like they're a fast person? No? No jitters? Okay. You want to be a snail. You want to be a snail with a turtle. Slower is so much better, right? We're not tenderizing people, okay? So slower applications. We're here, and we're here. What I can be doing with this hand is I can be feeling right here for the spine and the ribs so that I can use them as barriers to know where not to put my forearm, right? Right there, I'm good to go. Contact feels like massage, then I'm actually doing massage. Ways not to get twisted is to not have the other hand trying really hard to not touch them. If I'm like this and I'm trying really hard not to touch, I'm gonna get weird and twisted, right? So just bring that arm over. Now I don't do that making contact with the bony landmarks thing anymore. I just plant my forearm somewhere I think it might feel nice for it to sit, but usually it's just where I'm comfortable. I don't want to be like this. I want to be like this. So then I just find a way, whatever seems and feels best, somewhere between the scapula and the spine. Here, here. That's that two-step. From this side, contact, identify, forearm, here. I want to get more comfortable, but I'm not applying pressure with this. It's just hanging out. This is the arm that's doing the work, and this is the leg that's forward. Watching a demo, by the way, is real boring, real fast. But you will be amazed at how good this feels and how much it works in terms of getting the results you're looking for. Doesn't have to be this really fancy choreographed tap dance, okay? We are slow, methodical steamrollers, okay? Now, moving our way up. Initially, I suggest staying with the same arm. So I'm on the left side, the right side, on the right side of their body. I'm using my left forearm on their low back and their mid back. If I'm on the right side, the left side of the body. I'm on the left side of their body, I'm using my right forearm for their low back and mid back. I feel it's most importantly, just initially, it keeps you from going this way. And since you're standing more on the lateral side and you're going to make contact with generally the lateral side of their body, right? You're going to initially struggle with not slamming into those floating ribs. There's not a whole lot of tissue thickness here. It's very thin, so it's just very ribby. So there's a little fancy transition of being able to figure out how to not be here, but be here. And adjust your body in such a way where that feels more seamless and comfortable. And you will get there, but to start out, you just avoid all of that if you do it this way. So you right forearm for this side low back, come up, and just backpedaling, taking steps backward, and the same forearm for the mid-back, lower thoracic region. The ribs are happier to be folded down. So you're gonna have, it's gonna potentially be good for breathing and all this stuff anyway, to apply forces with the ribs being pushed that way towards the pelvis. So if you're picking a reason why to do it for a variety of things, because like I said, it's breathing pattern disorder, or it's lymphatic drain, because I'm doing a big thoracic pump thing, blah, blah, blah. That would be the directions I pick, because I could put that in a chart and sound fancy. But really I could just be like, I don't know, I just didn't want to hit their rib, because they're bony. And that's that. Here, here. It's a lot of small steps. Now, once I'm here, though, that dastardly scapula is going to come and get you. You're starting to hear some anatomical terms. It's got to be an interesting way to meet me and just dive right into this. So, you got your lumbar spine and the pelvis. One thing about, let me come back a little bit. That'll be another aspect of when you're working. Getting really close to these aspects of the skeleton, but not applying force right into the hard edges of them, okay? So, and you will do it, and it's going to be the responsibility of everybody laying there to not just be nice, right? You can't just pretend that the person working on you, and it's the very first time trying to do a massage, like, no, you're perfect. Don't do that to them, and don't do that to yourself. We gotta really rip off this Band-Aid of like polite feedback, but feedback, right? Where, no, that's ouch. You're not gonna hurt it. Like, you're not gonna permanently damage somebody by putting some pressure into the iliac crest, but it's not gonna feel good, and it's never gonna feel good. There are times when I have to be really close to it though, and you will get better and better at being really close to these aspects of the skeleton, but not applying force into them in such a way where it feels painful and bony. But that's gonna just have to come with time, okay? It turns into, I find the edge of that pelvis, and I go, oh, you kind of have to back up a little bit and then sink more straight down, rather than just, ah! Okay? The scapulas are a fun thing to navigate. So you got this to navigate. The spine, you know, you're gonna have a tough time unless you're just trying to do wrestling moves, right? You're gonna have a tough time really doing something too bad here, because it's right at the midline and all that. I'm not usually worried about you working along on the spinous process. Most people struggle with not hitting the top of the pelvis, they struggle with not hitting the ribs, and they struggle with not smashing around on the edges of the scapula. And I don't know if anybody's ever had a bad massage where the therapist just goes, bam. Mm-hmm. Anybody felt that? Yeah. It's great. No, it's terrible. And they just do it. It baffles me. I have felt this so many times across the world now. They just go, ba-bam, ba-ba-bam. And it baffles me, right? It's not doing anything. If I want to help the scapula, I should move the scapula, not just, just speed bump my way over it. Now, when you move your arm to certain ranges, the scapula moves too, okay? I don't have a model, but that's okay. We move, it's a little bit less than this, but if I get especially past 90 degrees, either here or here, the scapula is moving quite a bit, okay? The position generally here that puts you where you can get around this thing the best and get to the places where people really want you to work is actually here. Not here. If they wing, they're gonna wing out. And not here, because it's gonna come up and be in your way to access this region. So look at this cool thing that just happens though. If I start in prone, I confirm that they can put their arm here. And then once I get to this part, kablam, kablam, and make those sounds as I work. Then I gracefully, just making contact, reposition the arm here. All those areas that people want, that thumb right there. Here. That's with a bit more of an angle. So this is the right place for me to show. Your stance is this. And you're happy standing right here. Oh, okay, good, okay. So right here, you live like this forever. But now my contact. I'm most concerned about initially my spine, making sure that I'm not, one, I don't fall over, of course. So your stance needs to be wide enough, but not too wide and all that. I need to have my pelvis uncrooked, my shoulders uncrooked. Now, what's important is I don't end up reaching so far that I completely destabilize the whole unit. At the shoulder, using degrees, I don't want to be past 45 degrees. Whether I be using my palm, fist, or forearm. The adaptation is that the palm and the soft fist allow me to stand more upright. And on thinner body areas, they may make more sense. But on thicker body areas, the person might be higher up and the forearm's gonna make more sense. I have to be aware of am I bending so much that my low back is straining. But then also with the shoulder stuff, this is what will get you. As soon as I take that shoulder past 45, I'm gonna start flexing at that spine. So, see my knee? So the same thing has to occur with the forearm. Here, here. But these excursions, so the length that I go, from start to finish, of the stroke, are usually pretty small. That's going to be one of the, now when I apply lotion, I'll do some swipey things. But then the meat and potatoes of this stuff is here to there. And a smooth step that makes it feel seamless. It's going to be clumsy to start, but it starts here. It's maybe a couple inches, and I take a little step, and that's a couple more inches. These do not have to be big sweeping glides, okay? That's how people hurt themselves, is doing the big stuff, okay? Now, our contacts can be, now this is always simplified because there's gradients within all of this, right? But I can be kind of more at a 45-degree contact, where, see how when I do that, I'm going to use the head as an example. I wouldn't work on the head usually in this position. Now, if my elbow angle, so my shoulder is at 45 and my elbow is at 45, and then I lean forward and bend at my knee, I'm going to be making contact more with the lateral side of stuff. I'm going to naturally come more flush with the outside, lateral side of the body. If I decrease my elbow angle, now I'm going to be more flush onto the posterior side of the body. So it's either I can be like this, making a 90-degree contact, or a 45-degree contact. What that would feel like in this position is the 90-degree contact is squashing more straight down into the table and making more contact with the direct posterior side of the body. If I use a 45-degree contact, I'm going to be more on the sides of their body, and I'm going to be pushing them in a direction. Or I'll be taking muscles and kind of pulling them, or pushing them, I should say, pushing them in a direction, as opposed to squashing them down. Relative to the skeleton, like on the legs, if I use this 90 degree, I'll be compressing the tissue more right into the bone. If I do more of a 45 degree, I'll be bending the tissue and sliding it across the bone. So doing both of those in some areas, like the low back, we can get all of that. So I can start here, and then I go here. Here, to avoid the ribs, I stay with just the 90 degree contact. For the neck and the shoulder, I will use a 45 to start in order to be more in this upper trappy area, but then to get more between the scapulas and the spine, where the rhomboids and stuff are, I need to flatten out. So I go from here to here. That's all it is. But there's a lot to be coordinating here. Your feet, everything. So it looks-ish easy, but there's a lot of factors to keep in mind. All right. So we covered a little bit of that. And now I'm going to expedite this a little bit, where the reason why I'm going to tell you to just stand here and to work on the arm initially in this position, if you can, is because it's a heck of a lot safer and more efficient. So please just believe me and listen to me on this one. If we follow this routine, and even if they're like this to start, right? Even if we leave them like this and we work here, it's pretty seamless. I'm standing right here. I might as well just continue to stand here and see what I can get done here. So if I move the arm, I'm right here. The medial aspect of the arm is a danger zone, okay? Everybody feel the medial part of your arm, upper arm, the medial part of your upper arm. Does that feel like a place you'd want somebody to apply a lot of pressure? No. Muscles just fold over there, and then it's just nerve, artery, and bone. So no. We'll work on ideas and maybe how to pull that and free up that line, but we do not need to compress that line. It will be ouchy and it's bad. So if I were to do this, what am I touching? If I'm here. Now I do now work like this, but I can see that line with my X-ray vision. I know exactly where it is, so I can be more precise. But if you want to just not worry about it, then stand over here. And you can't do it. It'll be fine. You can't do it, unless you really, really, really are trying to. So I can be here, and I feel like it transitions nicely. I'm here. I usually roll their shoulder around a little bit while I'm working on these scapula-related muscles, and then I'm able to transition over and be here. Then I can reposition the arm. Then there's even other stuff. I can do this with their arm and use my forearm like this. And that's the wrong stance. There you go. Here. Now, related to just positioning, it's just one of the odd things with how people lay. This is what? Excitement. Anatomical position. This is how people lay. So this is the anterior side of the forearm in the posterior position. Okay? Just an odd thing to reflect on as you're trying to learn all this stuff. When you're referencing pictures and thinking about what you've learned as you're applying it on table, it's annoying but true that the way you learn it in terms of the charts and all these reference materials, there's going to be distortions related to how we actually have the person positioned on the table. So just get used to it. So forearm, easily accessible. Hands. How do I work on a hand without using my fingers? It's a glorious thing. Now I do use, I do finger squeezes and all that kind of stuff too. But soft fist for hands, it's amazing. Works great. Now I would do all that on the other side, but then doing a quick little showcase here, like here, forearm, looking for hills. I know that Sarah talked a bit about hills, but here, related to that picture, it's identifying that only this lateral half is really what I can get to very efficiently. I can reposition a person and get them crooked and find a way to do this, but I have to really navigate a lot of options to figure that out. There are other ways, like I can reach across and all this, but to start, that's messy. It's much better to just be able to work on the stuff you can get access to best. So in prone, usually it's going to be this part and this part that you can work on pretty good. The thing to watch out for is up here, the lateral upper aspect of the upper leg. There's not a lot of tissue there. So feel outside the lateral side of, find your greater trochanter, right? That's where the actual hip joint, if you were to dive in, is. But if you go down and a little bit posterior, not a whole lot of muscle there, just IT band and then the bone, right? Your hamstrings they split at the knee, but then they track medial. They go very, very medial, okay? So they're on an angle here. And if I use my forearm and just glide straight up like that, then I'm gonna smash into this good old IT band in the femur, okay? So you really only have to worry about this portion where there's more muscle. We can get the rest of the hamstrings way better in another position. But this is another area where lots of ouchies happen. I don't know if anybody's ever felt that one, but same thing with the scapula. I felt a lot of therapists just have their elbow and go, yeah, right at that line. And maybe you're stripping IT band, maybe I can make an argument. I can tolerate that kind of stuff better than most, so it's not a big deal, but it's ouchy, and it's maybe not doing a whole lot for you. So, ouchy, and in order to adapt to get to that, I'd have to do something different like this. But I could also just put the person inside. Feet, in prone. There's ways to make this work, but if it's a short person, I have an issue here, right? It's gonna be a challenge, and maybe I'm stuck like this, but ideally it's only like one, maybe two people in the day that are real tiny and will refuse to lay in sideline, right? But this is a tough position. What do? I gotta climb up on the table. It'd probably be the best position for me, but there's no way to very effectively get here, okay? I've done stuff like this, but it's not perfect, right? I am usually at a very big disadvantage to work on the feet in this position if they're shorter. Now, there are ways to work on the feet pretty good in prone, and we'll cover that. Soft fist. I tend to hug toes and hands and fingers, toes and fingers, to protect them while I'm massaging. And I'd use a forearm or a soft fist, and then maybe a little bit of palm work. But if we flip a person real quick, go this way. I'll do this. Then all that stuff doesn't become a problem anymore. Now I'll reiterate this as we're working, but little things like making sure, not little things, everything's big and important. Getting the face cradle out of the way so that I can walk, while also making sure their head is off that. We want them on a stable surface where we can position them and all that kind of stuff. So they need to be off the face cradle, on a pillow, always on a pillow. This is an option for anybody with shoulder stuff and or hip stuff. always the bolster here. Now, it'll be obvious the advantages of working in this position. Like for a low back. Lots of huge advantages. But coming back to the leg to wrap that up. In prone, we got that half that's closest to the table out of the way, right? So if I stand and apply force in the exact same way, but with that 45-degree angle rather than 90, contact, 45-degree contact, look where I go. So I can get the hamstrings. Everybody thinks of the hamstrings as these posterior related muscles. The lower half of them, you can get a good chunk of it in prone. If you want the best position for most of it, it's right here. When we get to the actual muscle anatomy, that's where the attachment is. It goes right up here to the symphysis pubis. It's not symphysis pubis, ischium. Symphysis pubis here, where all your adductors go. So, not symphysis pubis, because that's the line. It's just the pubis. Symphysis pubis is the joint in between, and I am sorry with my uncaffeinated brain. All right. But you can see in this position, now a little bit what I have to navigate is the whole construct of inner thigh, medial thigh, and all that feeling safe, right? So making sure our draping is pristine and beautiful, and then choosing which part of our bodies we actually massage with. Open palms, we gotta be able to, I can talk to the guy a little bit, sometimes there's a little bit of an extra caution I have to throw at him, and that's just the way of the world, boo-hoo. Here, and here, with my elbow basically closest to the pelvis, then there's nothing to worry about, right? Including for working on guys and all that kind of stuff, right? Nice thing here, gravity's taking everything that way. Breast tissue, dude stuff, everything. So all we're worried about is usually the idea of getting too close to a butt, right? But if we just stay directed like this, using this arm and not this one, or using fingers that go up underneath the sheath, then you're okay. There's nothing to worry about, right? You use the forearm and you're a miracle worker. And you incorporate all kinds of cool joint movement things and come in like this, and it's an amazing, amazing thing. When we get to stuff related to ankles and feet, there's a bunch of muscles that run more medial and go down to the arch of your foot. The only way to get to them is here. The foot, the arch of the foot is where most of the stuff is. This has the arch of the foot aimed up right at you, and since even a short person can scoot down for you, you're no longer reaching. So I can just go like this and go wham. And this is an amazing thing. Best foot massage I can ever do, not using my hands. It's the best massage I can ever do, period, while also not using my hands. Focus on hips, IT band. The forgotten, sad lateral lower leg with your shins. There's two compartments of muscles here, both of which are very important. The only way to really get to them good is like this, because in prone and supine, they're very inaccessible. You can find a way, but you can do much better here. The tops of the foot don't get worked on. The foot is an important thing. It carries you around all dang day, right? So working on all of it. Just from a relaxation standpoint, as my goal and focus, if I work on I look at it this way. Head, hands, feet should be worked on a little bit longer for a relaxation focused session. I'm a robotic person. Maybe I'm a spectrum, it's okay. But so I'm not very good sometimes with the fine touch details. I need like something a bit more concrete like that. So for me, it's, all right, you're gonna get a nice head squish. I worked on the hands in prone. I worked on the feet a little bit in prone. I worked on this foot really good, the arch of the foot, the top of the foot. We flip them. Now this foot gets the arch, this foot gets the top. That's 3 foot massages. And then in supine, they're also gonna get a little bit of hand, and then a little bit of the head work. as well. So then it just patterns into such a cycle that the results, because of the contact and the sensory input, right? Now, the fancy side of this, believe me too, is that if your foot and ankle ain't working right, the rest of your body's gonna have a very bad time. So adaptation patterns and so many things, one way or the other, will cause adaptations lower and lower down the body, okay? And if we can't address this, which is usually a hardier part of our body anyway, like the feet can take, a beating. So we need to find ways to effectively work on these and get all these structures moving. It's a complex, cool thing. And rather than getting lost initially in the details of that, if you just move it in a variety of directions and massage and work on all of it, you're already well more than halfway there. Wow. Supine ends up being one of my more, I tend to do as much as I possibly can in sideline. I limit, my routine is turned into very little leg work in prone. I get the back a little bit, I get the shoulders a little bit, get the arms, I get the hips pretty good in prone. Then the person's on their side. And that's where I get like neck, shoulders, and I get the legs really good. And then supine's where all I'm left with is the anterior upper leg, the quadriceps, and the anterior hip, the chest, and the rest of the arm. The arm can be pretty fast, and maybe a little bit of neck work. At this position, the positioning isn't too hard. The only things, and I talked about a little bit, are basically, quads are important. I need a bolster. Why did I put it there? Or was I using that one? Who knows? What I need this for isn't just the safety of their knees and hips and all that. I need it so I could create a hill. Now there's always a hill if I stand on the lateral side of the body. Like there's a hill this way, right? So hill, but that's downhill. So this is good, a very efficient hill. Right here for the hip flexors, really important set of structures. They're kind of small, they're isolated up here, small little window, right? Really important. I just assume everybody's stuck sitting in a tiny car, all right? And when I visualize that, the areas that are tight and short are what usually need to be worked on, okay? And the hip flexors related to hip issues and low back, really under-addressed in massage because they're worried about being around a pelvis. The same thing can be even over the sheet. Not a big deal. Solid compression, little bit of joint movement. It does everything I need it to. I don't necessarily need to give somebody a wedgie just to work here, okay? I can work here. That's usually what it is. I should work on the quads, the stuff more close and related to the knee. I redrape, I work over the sheet, and get the rest of the stuff related to hips. Same thing with the chest. Here, there are ways of standing like this and working this way, but the draping and stuff, you have to be more careful. There's all that nervy stuff in the armpit you have to worry about. So starting out, don't do that to yourself. Always just get a hold of the wrist. Just always do it. Drape. That way the sheet is falling and making contact with the table, the clothesline, and then forearm. And we'll cover a little bit how to really make sure you're safely doing that, which ultimately comes down to, I can bring this out. It's not great. Okay. Not perfect. This isn't perfect in terms of my hacks, but if I make sure my hand is making contact with the table and then I bring my forearm down, it keeps me from being so high up that I could be on their clavicle. That's another thing you don't want to do here is go, aha, and snap. Now, I've never heard of this happening. I did break mine, but not from massage. But in order to avoid that, if I just here, see how I just can't? Done. And then if it's this side, then I have access to using the joint movement to change the shape of the tissue that I'm compressing. Just static compression feels very boring. Like, we can't call that massage. Some parts of massage can be called that, but that'll get boring real quick. When we talk about working on the glutes and the hips, I try to get you to just use the forearm and incorporate joint movement because the sensation makes it clearly feel like it's about the hip, right? Rather than just being a static compression into gluteus maximus, right? Changes the perception and it feels like more is happening because more is happening. The same thing here for the pecs. I always suggest incorporating it as a little bit of joint movement because it makes it feel like massage, and it is more massage because it's actually changing the shape of the tissue. And then you can wrap everything up.